Loud and clear. And can you see me and can you hear me clearly? Jagdish, are you there? Yeah, now I can see you. Can you hear me and can you see me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now I can see you, hear you. There is a bit of a so our networks are a bit down, but I hope it will be good enough for this session today.
Yeah, so one thing what I do is I sometimes switch off my video once in a while,
Okay.
and video drags a lot of bandwidth. So in case there is a lag, I'll raise my hand or I'll interrupt you. We'll start in a minute more. So you
Sure.
can switch off your video for a few minutes and then questions and inputs from all of you. In one of the earlier webinars, we were talking about how actually it came from a question from one of our listeners that I like to do multiple things in life. And this was when we were all discussing about these concepts of having a career that you liked and have a meaningful, purposeful life. So this one particular learner actually asked a very good question that, hey, what if I have two or three such purposes and I feel equally strong about all of them? And I get this question a lot. And though there is a very good research in this area, in fact, there's a TED talk called MultiPotentialite by Emily Wapnick that I encourage all of you to see if you get a chance. Watching a TED talk is very different, but today we actually have a multi-potentialite with us. This gentleman, and I've been following him for a couple of years now, was referred to me by a common friend. And I started digging about him through whatever I could find on the net, LinkedIn, and other areas. And he is an amazing human being. He actually, by training from education perspective, is a surgeon and not any unknown, but a very famous surgeon. Works in Fortis Hospital in the ENT department, and this is just one side of his personality. He also is an amazing inventor. He has worked on devices that are useful to save patient lives, and that's how I got connected because the common friend we have was working with him. Then not only that, this gentleman, he is a stand-up comedian, so he makes people laugh, and I've seen some of his videos. He in fact posts many of his videos on Facebook every now and then, and they bring a smile to my face. And lastly, I think few months ago, and I'm sure he'll talk more about it, he started a company with his friends where they produce mini series and they are now available online. So, not just a doctor, he is an inventor, he is a stand up comedian, he's an actor, and I mean, it doesn't stop here. He's also an author. And I think there is no better person to talk about multi potentialites than Dr. Jagdish Chaturvedi. So, please welcome Dr. Jagdish. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So,
Hi.
how do you manage to do all of this? I mean, first of all, you are giving all of us inferiority complex. We can't even do one thing right in life, and you do five. So tell me about your journey. How did you become this amazing personality that you are these days?
Uh, so firstly, thank you for this invite. I'm happy to share about this. But in my mind, it doesn't look like I'm doing multiple things. I think that's the reason why I don't feel like I'm doing too many things, because just a different perspective. Now, like for example, I'm sure all of us we have a day job, but we also do a lot of other things. Like for example, we may be driving down to work, or maybe picking a few friends on the way also. Or after that, when you come back at home, I'm sure you hit the gym, or and later on even have some passion in cooking. But it doesn't mean we are all drivers, gym trainers, and chefs in addition to our daily job. But if you look at the amount of time we spend on other activities, is actually there's a quite a bit. You work for 6 or 8 hours, but the rest of the time we're doing something. For me, I think what has happened is the same things that I was doing early on have all become professional sources of income. And there's a recognition for each of these activities, and that's why it looks like I am multitasking. But always been, in theater, I've been a professional theater artist since the age of 7, so almost now closing 30 years of theater experience. And I think I credit that to Bangalore, because in Bangalore there is a lot of encouragement very early on to be part of plays, or everyone's been a part of a rock band who's grown up over here in the 80s, 90s. I've been a part of a rock band too, called Victims of the Mad Cow Disease, after which I was kicked out from there. Uh, but um, but that's the thing that here my daily routine has always been, even in school days, study and be a part of a play, and at least do 2 or 3 formal play productions, rehearsals, performing, and then afterwards go back to studies, and again there is another rehearsal, and then again performance. So I am used to that since the farthest memory. The only thing that I did is I didn't stop after I finished my 12th standard, and that kind of got me unsettled for a few months, because I felt somehow I am not being mentally at peace or whatever, and I realized the role theater was playing in my life, and therefore continued to do theater even when I was in my MBBS. I continued to do theater even when I got into. I continued to do theater till the year 2015. But what also happened parallelly is, as I started evolving as a doctor, I have this habit of questioning everything, and one day I was seeing some patients, and I was not able to diagnose their throat cancer properly. This was back in 2008, and I thought that, if I'm not able to see early throat cancer, then that's not right. Why don't I make something, a camera-based device, which can in the rural areas where I can see the throat cancer. Said that, why you not a doctor's job? Because I'm still trying to treat patients, and I'm trying to make my diagnosis better. Maybe it involves me to develop a device and then form a company and take it out, and there's a whole process involved in getting that there. But that really helped me make something that made me a better doctor, and also made patients get better diagnosis and treatment. Today, that device is a device taken over by a large company called Medtronic, and a lot of healthcare workers, are being given jobs, and millions of people are being screened by that device. And I feel I've done a job of a doctor. So I don't feel innovations was something that was separating me from the field of being a doctor. I still practice, and wherever I see gaps, I figure out a way to solve it. And I think that's what doctors do, right? We are problem solvers. We see a problem in someone's health, we solve it. Sometimes we know how to solve it, and sometimes when we can't, you have to figure out a tool. I mean, all these surgical devices, scanners, everything has been made by someone, and doctors are involved in that process. I think in India, it's just that the mindset is you do only one thing and keep doing that. But a little bit of branching into the same domain is looked at with a lot of taboo. Now it isn't. Now it isn't. But yeah, 10, 11 years back when I started, there was some amount of, resistance. And then writing about it so that more doctors could do it. I'm not an author. I'm honestly not even an avid book reader. I don't read a lot. I'm only read comics. I'm not someone, who sits with a book and reads. But there are editors who can help you write well. And I just wanted to share the knowledge under the advice of one of my professors. And then I released a few books that talk about innovations and entrepreneurship. But if you look at it, they're all under the same goal of a doctor to treat patients. It's not outside that. So I don't think any of those things as an innovator or author is something outside the doctor purview. It wasn't my first choice. In the year 2015, I was so tied up with my surgical cases, and then plus I was running 3 startups in parallel and launching my first book. I wasn't able to make it for rehearsals. Because theater is a very structured art format. You have very rigorous rehearsals, and missing a rehearsal is a disrespect to the entire team that shows up. And with Bangalore traffic to add to my worries, I used to miss a lot of rehearsals, and invariably it used to be my clinical duties which were to blame. And that put my team in a tough spot because they're like, he has a valid reason, but we're not able to do our rehearsals properly. So I was softly banned from the circuit. It's like, iske saath kaam nahi karna chahiye. He'll last minute and then take away all the, main roles. And I then also thought sometimes you have to take a step back and see, can I really do theater and the other things that I need to do? The innovation and authorship is not a choice. It's something that I felt I need to do as a doctor. But theater is a passion that I wanted to continue. But for me, what I need is a stage and a way to get my creativity out. So I was willing to compromise on that and see, could I do improv? Could I do shorter plays? Believe me, I moved from 190-minute plays to doing 1 minute plays. There is a concept called 1 minute plays. I did a 1 minute play festival also. But nothing in theater bypasses your rehearsal with another human being. There will always be a director. There will always be somebody in costumes. There will always be a co-actor. And stand-up comedy was coming up, and stand-up comedy has one special feature that you can do this on your own. You can write your jokes on your own. Obviously, you need to test it, but there is flexibility. There is no rehearsal, strings attached with the rehearsals. For me, that was a big attractive thing to do. And I know stand-up comedy is a different format, but most stage performances have similar principles of voice delivery, and you communicate. And I used to write plays, so I know the writing. I had to adapt to the format, which took a few months, but the audience was willing to accept, and I was willing to improvise. And now stand-up comedy fits into my schedule. I do surgeries in the morning, I do a show in the night. There is zero overlap at any given point of time, and it helps me take out whatever I am stressed about. I need a platform to channelize. So I think, to answer your question, I have whatever I've been continuing to do as a child. I'm continuing to do that today. Theater has become stand-up comedy, and the doctor's role has expanded to an innovator and author. In my
But
mind, it's not different things.
yeah, I can see that clearly. You as a person feel that they are connected to the facets of your work, and I agree with you because this is exactly what careers should be. They're not they're not tunnels, they're actually oceans and multiple lakes that kind of flow in together. And I'm glad you said that. But let me take you back to a scenario. So I have friends, and I'm sure you have friends. We all, when we were kids and we became teenagers, we all had some passion, interest, hobby along with studies. So it could be sports, it could be guitar, but there is this hammer which comes in class 10th कि यार ये सब छोड़ो अभी competition पे ध्यान दो. And I want to take you to those days. And you were a person, you said that you were always with theater, so you did not let go of that. And even now, you do multiple things at some point in time. And I have friends who are awesome doctors or CXOs or directors or entrepreneurs. Many times they say कि यार I also want to do लेकिन लोग क्या कहेंगे. So I want to pinpoint that question. Tell me about your society, your upbringing. Did you have an edge that okay, you either did not bother about what the world says, or you had some kind of a mechanism to cope with that? Because many people let go of these
Yeah.
passions and interests just to please the society. How did you manage that?
Yeah, so there are two aspects to it. I'll talk about both. One is my intrinsic aspect, others my parents' involvement. So me, look, I have always been a problem child and an average student. I have never been the class topper. And to be very honest, I studied in very unknown schools. I know Vivekananda Educational Center, even if you Google, you won't find it. Uh, I did my entire schooling there. Then Sudarshan Vidya Mandir 11, 12. Then in Tumkur, I did my MBBS. So for me, I am not. I haven't been that bright guy that parents have a lot of expectations. So my expectation setting with my parents is a big this thing. They're like, "Kuch bhi kar le, tu main hum log खुश हैं." You just do something. Anything. We don't expect you to become, some major thing. Just something, just pass ho jai, it's like that. And I used to flunk a couple of subjects. I was very poor at mathematics, very poor at physics, and some things. I was always good at biology. I was always good at science. So some strengths and interests which I had. But I have flunked almost every class exam till 10th, and I have only been passed because of the sympathy of the teachers and a baby face and big eye look that I used to give them towards the exam time. And my 10th marks are just barely 61% average. My 12th marks are also not uh, excitingly very high, probably something in the 70%. My PCB, because that time there used to be CET, my biology marks were good. And with that, I was able to get a rank that got me a free medical seat, even though I managed to get a medical seat on a merit basis. But that was probably just, the point where in the 11th and 12th, I focused a lot on biology, and that was my interest. Because my father's a doctor, so we've been in a doctor family. So for me, to answer your question, is because there are not too many expectations from me. There's not too much pressure. And plus, I've always been a questioning rebel right from childhood. And my father, being a psychiatrist, kind of knew professionally also how to handle that. So I think there was a broad mindset also in my parenting, because my father realized these are his strengths, these are his weaknesses, so we have to just build his strength and see how we can improve his weaknesses. So it wasn't like I was getting beaten up or scolded to be something. I think they were fairly flexible to allow me to do a lot of things. Anything from plays, sports, rock bands in school days, and all of that. Not, I got into fair share of trouble as well, but because I have failed a lot, I'm very comfortable with failing. So there's no major izzat that I have to save. Aisa kuch, I never had that huge auqat ki bachana. Ki kaise you aced all your exams and the final one you got less marks. I had no pressure. I was like, I remember my parents threw a party for me when in 7th standard I got the 27th rank in the class, because that's the first time I passed, and the last rank of passing was 27 out of 44 students. And they took me out for dinner कि हमारा बच्चा पास हो सकता है. It's it's like that. So one is that expectation setting plus comfortable with failures and improving. So I really don't have a very I'm not protecting something or avoiding a huge disgrace. People will completely accept कि if I don't do well, they're like, ठीक है, ये तो जगदीश है, he doesn't do well. So it's so that is one aspect of it. But the other aspect is, my father, especially because of the psychiatry, always tried to ensure that there is not excessive pressure on reading. I remember very clearly my 10th board mathematics exam. He wanted to break the ice, and he took us to a movie the night before the mathematics board exam. The subject I am extremely weak at and most likely to fail. I must admire that he really took a huge risk at that point of time and say, you know what, you need to just get your mind, don't get too pressurized. And I like Urmila Matondkar, and there was a movie called Mast in Swagat Theatre. Like, tomorrow go and give the exam. And that also lets you know that, your parents are very comfortable.
Yeah.
All of these things play a role, because if you are comfortable with trying things and other people are okay with you trying and not doing well, I think once you get into that dynamic, you start experimenting a lot. And let me tell you, I fail 95% of the things I try. But the 5% that works is what stands out, and then people talk about. But for me, the 95% things that I failed make the 5%, impactful.
So I think you bought this failure thing, which is also one of my favorite topics, because I think one of our biggest problems in education is that there is no degree in failure, there's no subject in failure, and I think we should definitely introduce a course on how to fail. I'll explain that because I deal with many students who have always been trained to succeed, and these students and working professionals who are always trained to succeed, एक छोटी सी गलती हो जाती है, they fall so badly that it becomes a nightmare. I mean, the problems of mental wellness is very important these days, and while that is an important subject, but I want to ask you that I have seen people breaking down when they fail. And what is the failure? That from 95 marks 92 पे आ गए, मतलब that is failure. And you said that you failed 95% and it's 5% that pushes forward. So tell us, how do you cope with failures? I mean, are you made of a different skin? Are you made of a different material? What are your suggestions you can give to our listeners out there? Because this is one critical element, I think I'm glad people like you are talking about. So give us your views.
Yeah, so I think, see, our body and mind can learn how to deal with something when they're exposed to that situation. Like, for example, if you're exposed to a bacteria, then only your body will make an antibody for it. It doesn't come innate to you. So just like that, if there's someone like me who's failed a lot, then you obviously your body and mind figures out how to deal with it. But if you have never dealt with it and you always have the fear of how would that time be and you avoid, that I think adds a huge mental stress. And I think not having any failures is a failure because I think a lot of aspects of your body are not developed. A lot of aspects of your mind are not developed if you are not exposed to failing. It is a part of the developmental process. It's a part of your mental well-being and it's a part of your coping mechanism. So if you say that I want to learn karate, but you're never going to fight with anyone, then how are you going to ever become good at a fighting skill? So similarly, I think the reason why people are so stressed about failing is the stigma. And the second is they do not know how to deal with it. What is the way to deal with it? And the more you avoid it, the bigger the stakes get. So I follow this principle of fail first, fail fast, fail cheap. And what that basically is that, if you try and if you allow the fail, I'm not saying purposefully fail, but if you allow a mistake to happen, allow a failure to happen early, it's usually very trivial, but if you keep preventing it, then the mistake that you make could be extremely impactful, I mean extremely big, and that would be very difficult to cope with. So when you have done small mistakes and learn to cope with it, and eventually I have seen that every time I've made a mistake, I've seen an advantage also, and I've seen that it has benefited me. I've also realized that I have overcome it. Every time I've been through a failure or mistake, every time I have overcome it. And that is what I think gives you confidence. I don't think it is doing well that gives you confidence. It is, I think, knowing that even if things go bad, you will figure out a way to come out, gives you a very strong sense of self-esteem and confidence that, yeah, I can handle anything now. Like, what bigger than this? I set half the school on fire, I'm still fine. It's like that, right? So then the things, and your self-esteem and your confidence, these things, and it's not at the end of the world. I think that's most important. For some people, the problem becomes so big, they think it's the end of the world. It pushes them to self-harm, it pushes them to suicide, which is very, very unfortunate, because they never had the chance to see through the whole cycle of failure, because they kept avoiding it. They kept being not themselves, and they kept adding the stressor in their minds. And I think it is absolutely normal and all right to fail. And I strongly believe if anybody hasn't failed, that is not normal. That is not success. And I think you are devoiding a part of your mental development and your physical development if you're not exposed to a very, very natural and common situation, which will occur to you sometime in your life. And it's better to be exposed to it, and it's completely all right if it happens, not the end of the world.
Completely agree. I think the more you expose yourself to failures, the better your coping mechanisms become. But I think our societies are becoming exactly the opposite. We are not giving too much chance to fail. The stigmas have reached a level where the narrative in the society is that अरे उसने ऐसा किया, he failed and that's why he's like that. So it's become like a hence is equal to true कि fail मत करो. So that is one big issue. And there's one more, I want to pick up on something you said, that you went to schools and colleges which are very unknown. And I often, in fact, in all the webinars, in fact, today also this question will come. If not, it will come in future. That, sir, I want to get into these branded colleges. And, because once you get into these branded colleges, life is beautiful after that. Your self-esteem then is defined by these colleges. So these people always define themselves as, I've gone to these branded colleges. And it happens in medical sciences also.
Yeah.
There is a pecking order of certain doctors, and I find that funny. And I come from a doctor family as well, and when I look at many parents boasting that my child got this much rank and he's into pediatrics, and then somebody very humbly saying कि हमारा तो rank नहीं आया, हम तो we are in one department which is not a very cool department. We have these issues. And this caste system of education and pecking orders is diluting our failures and our ability to deal with these issues. So how do you cope with that? I mean, let's say you go to this uh, entrepreneurial summit because you're an inventor and you're an entrepreneur. And I'm pretty sure you'll find all these MBAs boasting, "Ki, I went to this Ivy League and I was funded by this top funding house." How do you deal with such cases? I'm sure you make jokes of them in your stand-up comedy. So tell us about your coping mechanisms about these caste systems and self-esteem and self-confidence.
So it's a part of your coping with failures, because one is your internal coping, that I am not competent, I made a mistake and there was a bad outcome that happened because of me. One is an internal healing. The other one is that once you fail and you make mistakes, people around you react to it. Now in the beginning it will always be it's that there's the phases of acceptance. First people outside will get angry, they deny, and then after a point of time they accept. And I think it's very important for us to see how much of what people say really matters. That you will only come to know when you are in that situation, when people have said things and then the same people turn around. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was starting to do stand-up comedy, as a doctor, my close friends who are well-wishers, they were like, yeah, Jagdish, soch, theater is fine. You play different characters, but stand-up comedy, yaar, tu soch, Joker ke paas kaun patient aayega? Like, that is the more patient. Will they take you seriously? Will anybody come? Like, think about your entire career, your practice. And and so what I do is, because I have heard a lot of people say things and I know 99% of the time it's a situational saying. It doesn't really have any meaning. That the same people will change, because just 6 or 7 months back, I did a large stand-up comedy show organized by the same friend of mine. So, it takes, when you see both aspects of people, once when they are not accepting you and the same people who are accepting you, that it's a part of the process. Yes, boss, initially people are not going to like it. That's the way it is. But later on, as they begin to understand what I am understanding and see what I am doing, and they see the impact, then they're going to start accepting it. Because I ask my patients that, in fact my patient load increased tenfolds after my comedy videos started getting popular. And that was very surprising, because I'm very experimental and I was like, chalo, patient load kam hoga, mere ko time milega thoda sa. But people started coming more. And I asked them, bhai, Joker ke paas kyun aa rahe ho? And then they're like, sir, doctor's image, that they will steal and do this. When we connect with you online on a level of humor, we already have a humor connect, and we think that, yeah, this guy is not going to fleece us. Or, we have some level of, comfort with you already. And that makes sense, but that's not directly visible to your eyes unless you do it. You might think of a perception that society puts. I talk about failures. My friends say, Jagdish, you talk that you make mistakes, who will get operated under you? They'll be like, hum ke doctor to galti ke bare mein baat kar, he's written a book on failures, why should we get operated? But people get operated, a lot of them. And the logic is this, guys. Would you be with a surgeon who makes his first mistake on you and does not know how to solve that? Or would you be with someone who's made so many mistakes during their training that he knows how to handle every situation despite things going wrong? Which hands are safer? And when you think of that, you probably want to be with someone who has dealt with a wide variety of situations early on and now knows exactly how to predict them. Even if it happens, you know how to manage them. Because when we are in a surgery table, there are just not doctor factors, there are patient factors. Sometimes the patients, we're trying to remove a tumor and the vessel bleeds. If it is the first time I'm dealing with a neck bleed, I'll panic. But if this happens a lot in my training and supervision, I'm like, this is the process. Get this here. This is call a vascular surgeon. Do this. It's process. That's how pilots are so calm. I mean, this unfortunate air crash that happened in Pakistan, somebody was playing the last few seconds of the pilot, and you should listen to the voice is so calm. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This, because they have been simulated with so many failures and so many bad case scenarios that they know how to deal with it, even when they know that their life is about to end. And for a surgeon also, the more comfortable you are as a surgeon and the more success rates are higher when you know how to deal with things that go wrong, because invariably they will, right? And it's not going to be because of you, but just think sometimes the body is very unpredictable, and that's how it is. So when you start venturing into this, you start learning this whole domain of yourself, of how you deal with it, plus others, how the same person has changed, how the same perception has changed. I start thinking at the end of my comedy shows, uh, very early on when I did my few comedy shows, there's a line of people after the show. I'm like, selfie le rahe, main famous, main famous. Then they come to me, they take out their CT scan. Hamara naak band hai sir, isko like, okay, but why? And then I realized that my show price is 250 rupees. My consultation is 1,000 rupees. ने Indian दिमाग लगाया कि हम लोग को 1/4 price में consultation also we will get, and we will get to see comedy also.
और जोक भी मिलेगा.
और joke bhi milega. And I can't be, I can't say, at the end of this, don't do it, I can't do it. And then many of those patients, they come into comedy. Many of the comedy people come into patients. There's such a lot of, comedy and medical practices nowhere remotely look similar. But it's at the end of the day, it's human beings, right? And human beings don't compartmentalize so much, they mix it. And eventually everything connects very well. So I think hopefully if I've answered your question,
Yeah.
you understand the society and people as you keep going into the situation. And unless you have not seen both sides of the coin, you really don't know what the value of that money is.
Makes sense. No, I think while you were talking about this case, I was reminded of that Munna Bhai MBBS, where there is Boman Irani who's like giving this awesome speech, ki ye haath kabhi hilta nahi, and all that stuff. And then comes Sanjay Dutt and bulldozes everyone with his laughter. And you kind of articulated exactly what is the right thing to do. That at some point of time, we are human beings. Human beings do respond to emotions, and vulnerability of a doctor and a manager is as important as the strength of that person. And you are pretty much saying what I believe to be the right thing. Now the problem is, I also know people in the industry who say ki if you have to become like a top doctor or a CEO, you have to look khadus, smile nahi karne ka, enter the office as if the whole world is going to take something away, so you maintain distance. But you are saying exactly the opposite, that hey, it's one, you can't compartmentalize these things. People mix up and it can be very useful for you. So I'm in your side, and I hope your views can change some people out there. I have a student who also uses stand-up comedy, and he has a way of saying that I want to be the funniest CEO, Sridhar.
Right?
I don't know if you know him.
Quite well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did my first show with him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I called him in one of the webinars, and we did a full webinar on stand-up comedy, and he was there along with two others. And I think these are words that echo these days, and I hope it becomes like a tsunami of new ways of thinking, that don't stay away from emotions, bring them into your work, and it will be better for everyone. So good. This is a good time for me to announce to all our friends out there who are listening to us that please chat if you have a question. I might take the question and ask Dr. Jagdish. I have few more to ask him, but this is a good time for you to start chatting with me. There's a chat window. You can all put your question inside, and I'll try my best to take as many of them as possible. I'll start with one more question and then we'll open up to others. Dr. Jagdish, how did you find out your interests? Because a lot of people, and I know this for a fact, a lot of people don't know what they are good at, don't know how to find this, I'm good at acting or medical or making. How did you stumble at your own interests?
So I try a lot of things, like if something looks exciting to me, I try it, and if I feel I can grow in it, or I like to answer your question. I don't do anything which is forceful or feels like a job, even my practice or anything. I really have to like it and feel comfortable. It shouldn't feel like an effort for me. So if I'm doing comedy, but there are a lot of things that I have tried and eventually not pursued for various reasons. I used to be a state level cricket player. I played cricket for about good 8 years. I used to play table tennis a lot. I used to play badminton a lot. I don't know. Now I look very different, but I was 3 times the size and much more muscular as a almost a state level bodybuilder. used to gym the right way, and I'm still recovering from a lot of the injuries. I've played the guitar, I've played the drums. Just this lockdown time, I like, let's pick up a ukulele. I got a ukulele, that thing that you sit on and you play, like a drum. So I keep trying a lot of things all the time, and there's almost everything that I have tried, and I don't let any regret happen. There's a song with Baba Sehgal, I don't know if you've heard it. Came into this month called Milki Baba, where we did Sehgal as a collaboration. I also done photography, and a lot of things. So to answer your question, I figure out what I'm good at and passionate by constantly trying and being okay if I cannot do it. And there's no other way to know. You have to try. If you keep speculating and analyzing too much, that is not going to give you as relevant an information as to just, yeah, take that instrument and try it out, or take that. I've tried dancing also. I used to dance as a kid. I was very bad at dancing. I realized that late because birthday parties, they used to make me dance thinking they like the dance, but they used to look at funny moves that I used to make. So I think I I stopped doing that, and there's some things of it, like I comedy when I started as trying. I was trying improv, I was trying 1 minute plays, I was also trying miming, I was trying mimicry. I was like, try stand-up comedy. But what stand-up comedy did is I realized I had a natural knack. Audiences were laughing, a lot of things, and it was growing, and I was automatically getting shows and requests. So there was a pull, and most of the things that I have sustained to do has had a pull. Innovations, a lot of people keep reaching out for ideas and startups, so there's a pull. Books, web series is a transition from books to web series format. My web series starting trouble shows my initial journey of how as a medical student I converted into an innovator while grappling with theater. And I thought that, from the advice of some of my seniors, who guides me, he said that not too many youngsters read books, and you need to really reach the young mind, and a web series is a good format. Uh, so, uh, so I keep trying different formats. If you go to any of my social media channels at the rate Dr. Jagdish Chatur on Instagram, you will not see one type of comedy video. You won't be able to bracket Jagdish as, oh, he's the one, like Sridhar Venkatraman, is a one-liner, nice one-lines with good political puns and all of that. I do that also, but I do other things also. You'll see me do some slapstick also. Sometimes I'm making funny faces. Sometimes I'm being the virus. So I keep trying and experimenting a lot, and that's my nature. And that helps me learn about what are the things I can do and grow.
So on that, there's a very good question from Kriti because I've seen your videos. Some of them are really slapstick. You make faces. There are four people. I remember there was this one video जिसमें आपने like एक lady का वो साड़ी पल्लू वल्लू पहन के. I mean, it takes guts to do all that. So here's a question from Kriti that how do you deal with people's negativity and judgment when you're pursuing your interests? As sometimes it happens that your parents also don't support. I think your parents are very supportive, but how do you deal with this negativity and judgment from others?
I look at negativity very differently. So I have a scale of my own. If somebody criticizes a negativity, I look at it as jealousy or a sign of success. So I have some, I came up with my own criticism score, whether it is a true criticism or whether it is a jealousy criticism. And I feel for an artist or somebody who's going outside his league and is progressing faster than he should, you will get pushback. You may have people criticize you. You may have people say, I still get this, na, tu वापस practice करना क्या comedy कर रहा है YouTube पे. But I can also say, tu ignore करना क्यों comment मार रहा है, like, desperate alone person wanting attention. But I don't do that. But if I don't get that negativity, I feel I'm not creating impact. I feel like I'm not out of my league. Because if I'm acceptable as a normal thing, then people are going to accept it. But only when I go outside the boundaries, people are going to start telling things which they usually don't. And my criticism score is, if anybody is on a public platform criticizing, then that's usually an element of jealousy or an element of lesson teaching. That, hey boss, don't go ahead of who you are. Just quiet down. The true criticism is people who directly message without putting it in a public platform, where I feel that, okay, this only is meant for me and somebody has told it only for me to know. I take those judgments and criticism very seriously, and I'm always very open to changing myself. The other thing that I didn't answer in the previous question is I also listen to advice from mentors. Normally, we get so used to that. Hey, you should do this. You should that you just tune off and become all or none. What I do is when my mentors tell me something, if it doesn't excite me or doesn't make sense, I don't follow it. But if there's anything which I feel has an ounce of sense, I definitely try it out before rubbishing it. What I am today is because of such advices. So my boss, Dr. Ravi Nair, who's a senior ENT professor, was my guide at that point of time. My web series shows him, Renuka Shane, who's a Bollywood actress, plays his role, shows about how he basically told me to try inventions. And I would, if I was like any other student saying, hey, he keeps selling air, I would have never tried it. But I thought, maybe some sense, man. He's saying something, I should try it out. And it changed my entire portfolio. So I think, this kind of negativity and judgment is important. And right now, the reason why I'm not a successful stand-up comedian is because not too many people get very offended. I think that's very important to be popular. I have not got a death threat yet. I've also at least give one death threat. Yaar, itna to izzat mera banta hai. Like I am not worth dying. Also, like that's probably because I play a little bit safe in my comedy, but it's good to get this kind of negativity. It's a marker of a lot of things. It's how you take it. If I start taking everything out there personally, that basically means I am not comfortable with myself and very insecure. But when you are okay with it, and you look at it, there's a lot of humor that comes out of it also. I love reading negative comments, and but what I do to tame them is I never respond to negative comments. I only respond to positive comments. So if even somebody is seeking attention, they write, "Oh, you're so good, you're so nice," and I say thank you. But if they write a bad note, I just ignore it, but I enjoy it.
Nice, very good. Here is one more question from Moto G4. I'm sure that's not his name, that's his cell phone number or name. So his question is that I think he works in the government, so the government takes away 9 to 5, and he says that there is no time to pursue my interests. So how does one pursue interests when you are locked down in a job from morning till evening?
Yeah, that's very true, sir. It is not possible. Very, very difficult to do multiple things when you're locked down. For example, the initial days why I struggled is because I was in a 9 to 5 job, and when you're on a payroll by an organization, at many levels of ethics, it can be perceived that spending your time on other things is kind of like cheating on your parent company, right? You're taking the time they are paying for and doing other things, whether it is even outside work or whether you're doing some things inside work. And the only time I faced a lot of colleague related conflicts was when I was in a 9 to 5 job and a fixed salary from a hospital. And I realized that, I had to make a choice. Should I be happy or should I be stable? And the stability is in what people think is stable. And I was like, I'm not going to sustain too far being that way. I think I need to be mentally stable rather than being that. So I decided to leave a salaried job to be able to multitask, because one of the things that you need for multitasking, if in fact you need two things to do good multitasking, is you need flexibility and control on your time. If you do not have flexibility and control on your time, it's very difficult to juggle multiple tasks. And second thing is you need to be able to work with teams on a commercial basis so that they don't leave you. There's only so far you can get with favors. Maybe first few times they will do it, then they'll stop picking your call, and then they label you as "Aye, kuch mang raha hai." It's like that. But when you start working with them in a formal basis, I have a team for everything I do. I have an entire events management team. I have 7 startups. Each startup has 2 co-founders and a team of people that work. I have an entire editing team, design team. I have a very big clinical team. The junior residents, there is an appointments team and all of that. I outsource everything that is away from my core skill. So I only focus on the core, treating patients, following up with patients, surgeries, performing the show, anything from my flights to travel to stay, everything is taken care of. And they earn from whatever I earn, like that. And that and the flexibility of my time allows me to scale. I wouldn't have been able to do this if I was in a part of a 9 to 5 job. It just wouldn't be possible. So you have to make a decision on what is feasible. Maybe your passion, if it does not conflict with your 9 to 5 job, then that can be fine. But if you want to pursue something at a professional level, when you comes under the legal ethicalities, in many ways it is true that, if you're working under an organization, spending your time doing other things, and it affects your work and deliverables, then at some level that is also probably not the right way to go ahead with it. But you should be willing to take a risk and maybe take a sabbatical. A lot of organizations allow you to take a sabbatical to try things out. Some people have taken the risk of just leaving it. Like I left. I'm like, I don't want a stable job. I want to grow and I want to try new things and I want my control and I want to be my own boss. And that's what makes me happy. You have to make that decision. And once you do something you're passionate about, you will grow in it. Then you won't feel. But if but it has a risk appetite. If you don't have a risk appetite and you're just generally as a person a very risk aversive, it's a very difficult thing to do. So that's something that you have to balance, and there is no external person who can ever give you the answer. You have to figure that out for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also get this question a lot. I'll add one more response to Mr. Motoji for please learn to sacrifice many of your dreams. I think one of the biggest problems we nowadays have is that we dream a lot, but we are not willing to sacrifice. And I think you should let something go. Either the 9 to 5 government safety goes or your dreams go. And sometimes it's okay to cancel your dreams. I mean, this is one thing my father teaches us, that तुम लोगों को पढ़ाने के चक्कर में we had to kill our dreams, and they don't regret it these days. And this is something I think my father takes tremendous pride in, and I also encourage you to do that. That please don't hold these dreams to you. You will only experience regret, and sometimes it's okay to just let it go and say कि यार अपन से नहीं होएगा, and 9 to 5 जाऊंगा, घर आके टीवी देखूंगा, सो जाऊंगा, and that's a good life, nothing wrong in that. There is a comment from Puneet Surana that you're a polyglot and he's saying good words about you. There's no question there, but I thought I'll pass that to you.
Thank you.
There is a question from Yash. His question is that you do multiple things in a day. So how do you shift your brain? Because he finds it very difficult to shift the brain from activity 1 to 2 and 3. So how do you do that?
In my mind, there is no shift. I mean, if you're liking what you're doing, it is pretty much similar to you come home and you cook something, or you come home and you watch something. I mean, you just like how you shift your brain there. It's that. But I think this brain shifting also helps you helps you heal, helps you relieve stress. See, one of the very scientific healing mechanisms is distraction. Even in pain therapy, there is distraction, and when you distract from pain or learn how to distract from pain, there are endorphins that are released. So suppose if I had a stressful day at my hospital, and suddenly now I'm in front of a crowd of 500 people doing comedy, I'm not even thinking about what happened. I'm just completely focusing on how to make these guys laugh, and they're laughing and clapping, and I'm feeling good. And then I realize I feel much better. It's not stressful to have that mind change, but again, it takes some time for you to keep doing this to realize these shifts. For me, it doesn't happen so much because the way I do my ENT practice is I've completely allowed flexibility in such a way that patients are never affected. So I'm a nose and sinus surgeon. So my patients usually are discharged right after the surgery. So I'm not really leaving any patient in the hospital while I'm doing any shows. So it is like a completion of a task and starting of a new one. So there's no string that is, attached. And plus, because now I'm a practicing consultant, I'm not employed under a hospital, or I'm not a junior resident, so I don't have duties. I've done a lot of 36 hours, 72 hours duties, and those times my my theater life really struggled. But now, because I have a decision to control my schedule, I don't do any emergencies, and I only do elective nose and sinus surgeries, and it's all on a calendar for the next 6 months to 9 months. So I know what days are available for me to do shows and other things. And I never cancel any surgery for shows. I have a hierarchy very clearly with my teams and event managers also. Surgeries and patients get first priority. Any show, however important, will be cancelled, or rather not scheduled on that day. So we try to make sure it's not scheduled, so we don't have to cancel and affect someone. And the surgical calendar gets filled first. And if there is some day where I feel that there are too many surgeries and it's going to overspill, I just don't keep a show in the evening on those days, so that you don't have this kind of a situation of quick shifting. But so far, except for a few times where I've done 3 surgeries in the morning, 2 shows in the evening, this has happened 3 or 4 times in my life. Most of the times it doesn't overlap so much, and you get enough time to shift, prepare, and do your things.
On that comment, Puneet asks a question that how do you concentrate? Are there some concentration hacks that you apply? Like, okay, I have to do an operation, concentrate. Now I have to do stand-up comedy. Now I have to talk to my startups. Are there any hacks that you follow?
I think a lot of it is because of the field itself. Being a doctor is also a very reactional field. Being a comedian is also a very reactional field. So it's not a passive thing that I have to focus on. And like I see, okay, this is a disease, and I'm inside. I'm with my camera, and there's bleeding, and I have to stop it, and I have to remove this. So you're reacting, right? You're reacting, and you are carrying out an activity. Similarly, in comedy, you're saying something, people are reacting, you're reacting back, and then this thing. So it's like having a conversation. You're able to focus on a conversation, right? Because somebody's there, you're saying something, they say something back, you say. So similarly with the patient, you are doing something, the body's, you are doing something, is always with people. Whenever you're doing a lot of people related activities, the activity itself allows you to focus. But for example, if I were in a more monotonous job where I'm supposed to, my work is to maybe draft a paper or something like that, then it's hard to focus because there is no reaction from that. It's just what I'm writing is going, you know. But here, because my work is so reactional and so unpredictable, that your focus comes very naturally in these situations. And that's how I'm able to focus. I don't write books all the time. I've written only 3 books. And to write those 3 books, I took 1 week leave and just finished the book in 7 days, went to the editors for publishing. So writing work is, not really a constant thing. But yeah, talking to startups, taking feedback on the device, doing comedy and seeing patients, these are all very reactive things. So that's how the concentration comes.
That's a good purview. I never thought like that. I think it makes a lot of sense. Piyush asks that in today's era, what is more important as a professional, jack of all trade or master of one?
I don't think that's your decision. I think the decision is what makes you happy, and I think in today's world that is very important, that you are comfortable with who you are. And there's so many people who even in their 30s are now beginning to do activities to realize who they are. Most of us don't even have the insight that we need to know ourselves. We're just following something because they're tried and tested, and that's the way life is. But are you comfortable with it? Are you happy with it? Are you satisfied? Do you have any regrets? I think that's a very important thing. And for me, there was an incident that kind of switched me like this. So one is being a doctor. What happened is, about before I started inventing or something like that, I think about 8 or 10 years ago, I was traveling in a train, and I was on the side upper berth. And the small ledge that comes out, right? So
Yeah.
I put my leg on it, and I was sleeping in the cold AC. And when I got up in the morning, my foot wouldn't pick up. And my doctor mind is like, stroke ho gaya. Stroke, गाड़ी रोको, chain खींचो, अभी this will progress. Is it Guillain-Barré syndrome? Am I going to have respiratory failure? I have to call my parents, all of that. And that really made me realize that, I get very affected by terrorism. Hear some bomb blast somewhere, some plane crash somewhere. And I realized that, you can't really ensure your safety at all points of time. So I then had a mental shift to just do things that I should never regret. If I feel like I want to do something, no, I just try it as quickly as possible. Chalo kar liya, kar liya. Ab mar gaye to bhi theek hai. It's like that. So that when that kept on growing, I was I just, if now suddenly if I'm talking to all of you and I get an idea, man, I can do something on a webinar based sketch. Trust me, I will shoot it tonight. It'll be out tomorrow. I won't wait ki someday when I'm free, I will sit in the valleys and Coorg, and I just don't do any of that. करना है तो अभी कर लेंगे, we figure out a way to do it. But for me, that's what excites me. See, in multitasking, the moment you make it quick, and if you're a creator, it's extremely addicting that a thought suddenly becomes a product. And then when you see both sides of it, it's like giving birth to a baby. You'll never hate your baby, you always love it, right? And it's so nice that creativity does a dopamine surge, right? So for me, that speed really attracts, and that's why if you look at the things that I do, I have a formula of do no harm. So everything I produce with little bit above average quality, just like how I was as a student, but I don't go to perfection, because to go from 80% to 100% can take 10 years, but to go from 50% to 80% does not take too much of time, 2-3 trials, iterations, and you're out. So most of the things that I do are just satisfactory, just pass. It's not bad that it's creating damage. It's not wrong information that is creating harm. It's not thoughtless. But at the same time, I have not spent so much time and effort that, man, I cannot have. You'll see a lot of my books have spelling mistakes. I'm like, hone do, koi batayega spelling mistake hai, at least I'll come to know usne padha kitab. So I use failures and mistakes as feedback. If people read it, they understood it. Like, sir, 49 page mein ye galat hai. तो मैं बोलता हूँ जानबूझ के डाला है कि you reached 49 page. Do that. So I think to answer your question is, I what the question was actually. I kept talking.
That's okay. I think you have answered. The question was jack of all trade or master of one.
Be happy. If you're happy and you're comfortable, however it is, I think that is the main thing. You should not have any regrets, because I think a lot of the mental conflicts occur when you feel like you wanted to do something and you couldn't do it. And I know you may want to do a lot of things which may not be possible, some may be illegal, but I'm just saying that, the things that you can do and which keeps you happy, I think those you can do.
We'll take one or two more questions. We've taken a lot of your time. There is one question from Mr. Vardarajan. Very nice question. It has its own tone of racism in it. He says that there are many North Indian people who are more multi-talented than South Indian people. So what is your view on that? And he gives the example of two doctors, one who dances on Govinda songs and other is a singer. So your views, are South Indians as multi-talented as North Indians?
Yeah, I haven't looked at it in that way, but I think everyone from everywhere. So it depends on how much are you exposed to this kind of a talent. I think the examples you're giving are probably something that you would have seen in the news or Aaj Tak, those kind of things. But if you're an avid talent watcher on platforms like YouTube or live shows, they're like the Tamil stand-up comedy community is so massive and so talented.
Yeah.
Out of, I think, the regional comedy spectrum, I think the Tamil comedy and the Kerala art forms, and I think like I would say Karnataka especially encourages a lot of theater, a lot of art forms. And I think there is an equal balance everywhere. Maybe depending on what you're watching or what you're used to, there may be certain spectrum of things that pop up for you. But I think if you just go and look about it, I really don't see that kind of difference, to be very honest. I can easily cite examples of people and skills from all parts of the country in almost every field that they're doing well. I don't think talent has to do with where you are from, because I think each region can have its own societal things. In fact, if you look at it, the South Indians are generally more open-minded because the societies are usually more, accepting to things. But in North India, I think many tier 3 cities or rural cities, you might see a lot of narrow-mindedness or a lot of stigma and a lot of society-based things. But despite that, I think people pursue their passions everywhere, because I think sooner or later they realize that it is about their internal happiness and comfort zone. And I think that is what matters. And I think that is just a human feature. It doesn't really come from.
Yeah, I also feel that the people in South, because of the connectivity to Singapore, Malaysia on this side, and then from the other side to other countries and the spice trade,
Yeah.
the internationalism was a lot more as compared to North, which was mostly ravaged all the time. So I feel that you're right. I think it's a human nature. There are equally talented people all over the place. But I feel that people have more access to these global thought processes because of these geographical issues. We'll take one last question. There were many more questions who came. Most of them have been answered very nicely by Dr. Jagdish. One question is from Mr. Uday Shankar. He says, how do you manage stress? And the question has lots of issues on child stress, expectations from parents on the child. And that's why there is a huge stress. And I can relate to this question because I've worked with a lot of teenagers. Most of them complain that I want to do this, but my parents want to do this. The society wants me to do this. So how does one manage stress? What is your view on that?
Yeah, so I think the times have significantly changed. Like in my very little 36 years, I have moved from VCD floppy disk to now webinars, right? And you can see how much the environment changes and how much the way we are doing the same things change. A lot of you must be also rethinking whether the 9 to 5 stable job is really making a sense. Looking at the way things are, economies are crashing in countries, you might even wonder, is going abroad even the right thing to do? Do you have better opportunities here or better opportunities there? And I think the benefit of the doubt has to be given to the individual who's living in that time and who understands that time frame. Because they are the one who has to live and go ahead with it. And I think as a parent, I have 2 kids, but they're not at that stage yet. I have a 4-year-old and just have a 2-month-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. But even at this level, and like I learned from my father also, because we have a strong psychiatric influence. My father's a psychiatrist, wife is a psychiatrist. I did one year of psychiatry before doing ENT. Then I was admitted for 1 year. I have a ward over here. I'm under treatment and all of that. No, that's a joke. I'm just saying. But but having said that, I think the way you can build self-esteem in someone is if you allow them to try what they want to, rather than negating it very very much ahead. If you keep negating things, keep saying the opposite, then they tend to become the opposite. They tend to become repulsive, saying that you don't understand me
Yeah.
and I understand myself, and which is true. Obviously they will understand more about themselves than you are an external human being. They're a part of that human being that is talking on their behalf. So you have to give that benefit of doubt, and always it may not be comfortable, but you may have to want to try that out, to see that whether that what the person is saying about himself or herself, does that really hold true. And that will relieve a lot of stress in their minds and as well as yours. And I think we are at a time now where it's not linear, everything is parallel. Now with social media, you can go all over the place. I can have a call in the US, I could be doing 3 things, and it's not that linear anymore, that you will waste a lot of time if you try something and you won't be able to catch up. And I think now our technology and connectivity allows you to try things, and even if they don't work in 3 to 6 months, you can still be back to normal. You lose a year and don't get into medicine or don't get into engineering, really now is not that much of an impact that it used to be. I'm sure it used to be a huge setback in the
Yeah.
past. You didn't have other opportunities. You were in your house and you were stuck. Now you're not in your house. You can be virtually there anywhere, right? So I think to answer your question, one of the things to reduce stress is to allow the self-esteem to grow. You are stressed when you feel you're captivated and you're not allowed to do what you want to do. Or you're doing something that does not make sense to you, but you still have to do it. Is a very unpleasant thing to do. And that has its own chronic and immediate effects. You are comfortable with what your child likes to do or not, and you have to somewhere draw the balance. If you are willing to take one step ahead, I'm sure your child will also agree to come somewhere in the middle ground and see how you can try it. I'll tell you a tactic of how my father used. Right after my 12th, I said I want to go to the National School of Drama and enter the film industry. And he said, it's very good. You should definitely do that. It's very prestigious and it's not easy to get into. But why don't you try and get a graduation of some form, and after that go for anything. I mean, it's good to at least complete your graduation, and you're interested in science, you wanted to be a doctor, finish that. Who's stopping you? And I was like, okay, okay. He's not saying no, but at the same time he's also saying, do your MBBS and then still pursue it. It's a different matter that I'd never went to National School of Drama, because as a medical student, I think the theater avenues were so much that I was still able to satiate my theater needs, and I
Yeah.
could still learn theater. I've done certified theater courses and all of that. But you need to have that kind of a conversation with your child where you're not coming across strongly as no, pushing your child into something dangerous because they are not mature enough to understand it.
Fair enough. I think that's a great response. I think you.
So I guess that is on a case to.
Sorry, say that again, doctor. I interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
I wasn't saying anything.
Oh, okay. I think the lag was there. So what I was about to say was that I'm glad you touched about this self-esteem connected to stress. This is a very big thing in our country. I think as a society, all of us should talk a little bit more about self-esteem, mental wellness, and self-confidence. And I'm glad you did that. So, Dr. Jagdish has given his handles of Instagram and his website and his company's URLs. Please do stay in touch with him. I think he's covered a very big area for all of us to look into. Dr. Jagdish, I learned a lot from this conversation. I think it was fascinating, and wish you a lot of success in all the seven ventures, plus your HIIH, plus your medical work, plus your theater. And I hope you inspire many teenagers and youngsters out there to follow multi-potential thought processes so that they can enjoy themselves and also impact the world.
Absolutely. I think I would take this opportunity that there are people I can market a bit before I leave. Is that I do a lot of things to help out. So I have this book called The Benefits of Failing Successfully, which is very good for kids to read. A lot of schools have given that to their kids just to understand a different concept of failing and how to look at benefits. There are 10 examples of entrepreneurial benefits to very simple failures. And at the same time, I have a web series which would be appealing to the kids and youngsters. Most of my content is clean. There is no nothing that you need to worry about if you want to show it to your children and all of that. But it may probably give them a visual feel of what it is like to choose between passion and other things. And I've left my WhatsApp number and my social media handles. I conduct 3 workshops. I do a in-depth innovation workshop, which is 20 one-on-one online sessions. But I do small 5-session workshops on stand-up comedy or comedy writing or comedy creation if you want to try that out. I also do 5 sessions on presentation skills, on basically how to go on stage and present a, a topic in a way with a lot of theater skills and tricks. So if you're interested in any of those, I'll be happy to take that forward. Otherwise, please do watch my content and comedy content, and I'm always happy to both negative and positive feedback.
Excellent. And we would love for you to come into our classes. Dr. Jagdish, my entire work is on communication and confidence. And if you are doing sessions on presentations, I would love for you to come as a guest faculty in our classes and bring in theater and confidence to teach our learners. So I'll contact you offline on that and
Absolutely.
take your help on that. So all of you, thank you very much for being there, lovely audience. Avantika, please send the recorded URL to all our participants. And once again, Dr. Jagdish, thank you for being here. Wish you all the best. Can you hear me, Dr. Jagdish?
Thank you so